And obviously this was out of character for my
Sure,
son.
sure.
And from my understanding, it's just pot. Like I
Right,
didn't have knowledge how this changes your brain
right,
chemistry, like any of that.
right.
And the other part that was stunning to me, stunning, was not only to hear somebody tell my story, was all the little faces on the screen were doing a yes. They had all had that experience as well. So it wasn't just one, it wasn't two. It was like 35 faces shaking their head yes. And really, that took my breath away. That's when I realized, oh, this is like a big deal. Like,
hmm
this is happening everywhere.
Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Miller, and I'm so excited to have with me today Liz Reitman. Welcome, Liz.
Hi, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. And I just want to shout out real quick who Liz is. She's going to drop so much value, oh my God, from a parenting perspective and her journey, as well as, of course, sharing a lot of the great work that the organization that she's affiliated with, Other Parents Like Me. I just want to give a quick little background. Liz's got a really cool, actual background. She's got 30 years as an award-winning creative and marketing leader. She now puts all her energy, though, into this amazing organization as the CMO. It's called Other Parents Like Me, which we're going to definitely talk a lot about throughout this interview. It's a platform that supports parents through their children's mental health journeys and helps parents find connection and support, which is what this pod is all about. And Liz and I had a quick call before this, and there's, oh my God, so much value here, folks. So please stick around so you can hear about her personal journey as a mom navigating her son's trials and tribulations and struggles, as well as, of course, all the great work that Other Parents Like Me are doing. And also, we're going to dive into, obviously, what we can do as parents, right, to navigate this crazy, mangled mental health system. So thank you so much, Liz, for being here. Appreciate you for giving
Yeah,
your valuable time.
thank you. That's quite the intro.
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
so important.
yeah. I know, it's amazing. It's like
Okay.
I'm working on like learning to receive. Like I always struggle with
Um,
like receiving compliments. I'm always like
totally.
trying to like immediately move the person on. So, we were talking a lot offline about just like how hard it is for parents, right, to navigate when they have a loved one, a tween, a teen, a young adult who has mental health and or addiction issues or even just behavioral challenges. And it's 2026, right? And you even talked about how you were in New York City, which one would assume is like the best place in the world, right? Resources out the
Right.
wazoo.
You
But
would
if you
think.
don't mind, just please share kind of your come up and what was the personal hook that brought you to be the co-founder of Other Parents Like Me and to do this really deep, awesome work that helps parents, build connections and have support that they need to navigate their kiddos' journeys.
Yeah, thank you. I think it is an interesting distinction, being from New York City. There's the assumption that there's just this wealth of resources and information, which there may be, but I really didn't know how to find it. So my journey began with my son. And in middle school, I started seeing signs of a change in behavior and friendships, but really things blew up when he got into this school called the LaGuardia High School of the Performing
Mm-hmm.
Arts. It's kind of, I guess, considered elite. It's public. What I do know about it is it's very intense because you're getting an education. And then for him, he was also getting a music degree. So they're known to have the longest school day in the country. Yeah, learned this. And ultimately, he started smoking pot on the daily, morning, night, afternoon. He started to drop out of any extracurricular. He lost all interest. He was an incredible athlete. With his music, he wasn't really focusing on that. His friendships had changed. And I've come to since learn that, I guess, how do you say it? Pot was the symptom, or I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, he had anxiety, he had depression. I did not know he had a learning disability. So there was a lot of things going on, but all I saw was the kid that was smoking pot. And then he wound up failing a class. So the school required him to go to night school,
Mm-hmm.
which now you got to feel me. You got a kid who's like all day in school, the
Sure,
longest day, and now he's
sure.
got to stay even
Sounds
longer.
brutal. I would have acted out myself.
Yeah, right? And I
Yeah.
did feel for
Yeah.
him. I
Yeah.
really did. I was like, and I even remember going to one of his parent teacher conferences. I haven't really ever shared this, but the very first opening for one of his teachers, how she began the conversation with him, with me sitting there was, I don't hate you. And I
Mm.
was like, whoa, what kind of like
Yee.
this is, yeah, icky,
Yee.
right? I was just so perplexed.
Oh,
And like she just
horrible.
continued to talk to him. She didn't address me,
Mm.
I guess was the point of the conference, but I really felt bad for him. I was like, what kind of
Mm.
environment is
Mm.
this? So, I can't answer to what his
Mhm.
experience is. I can
Mhm.
only, speak to mine.
Mhm.
And it just got worse. And really, at the end of the day, I was really, really scared. His personality changed. And the thing is, I didn't realize like pot can do that. Like I was
Mhm.
so uneducated. I had no idea. And so for a son who all of a sudden punches a hole in the wall, I mean, I was just like so scared. I didn't know what to
Mm.
do. So much shame. How
Mhm.
much do you share with
Mm.
people? What is my part in this? The hardest part was, sorry, I think,
You're fine. Take a break. Take a breath. You're doing amazing. I
oh,
got you. I think the hardest part was, so
okay.
that's
Do
where
you
you'll
hear my
start.
phone ringing? Sorry.
No, there was
Okay.
a pause for, so you're fine. You're
Okay.
fine. We got
Okay,
we
cool.
got Greg on the other side. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I wasn't sure my phone. I have it on do not disturb, so I don't know why it's ringing, but
You
maybe if I just
you
turn it off.
you're about to say I think the hardest part is.
Let me get my thoughts back.
You're fine.
I think so for me, the hardest part was the co-parenting side of it. I
Mhm.
mean, maybe
Mhm.
not even the hardest, just one of the layers, like maybe is the
Sure.
better way to say it.
Sure.
And in our family, my husband had both his brothers die of drug overdoses. So while we were going through this chaotic experience, we could not get aligned. And, when I look back on it, we're since divorced. I would never blame it on that, but it definitely did not help our
Mhm.
situation. But I think what I realize is that we were both terrified. We both love him, but we were really standing on opposite sides of the fire. Like I was pushing for help. I was afraid of losing him. And my ex-husband felt like outside help meant we were giving up. So what I realized was we weren't disagreeing on the love of our kid,
Mhm.
but what love looked like in that moment.
Mhm.
And in hindsight, again, I can't speak for him, but I'll speak from what it seemed like from my experiences that he didn't want to see it. He had even said to me, "There's no way our son can be like my brothers." And so the way I saw that was denial, which freaked
Mhm.
me out even more.
Mhm.
And so, and to speak about New York City, I started to like really like freak out about I'm in this on my own. Like
Mhm.
he's not going to be a co-parent. He doesn't want to see it. And like, what do I do? What are my rights? Who do I talk to? And, I have incredible friends in my life, but literally they were like, look at my daughter's high school
Mhm.
graduation photo,
Mhm.
or this is where my son got into college.
Mhm.
And my benchmark was on another stratosphere.
Sure.
I wanted my son to live. Like I
Sure.
couldn't even think about school
Mhm.
anymore.
Mhm.
And then when I started to do research, I'd find like outward bound
Mhm.
therapy that
Mhm.
children had died, or
Mhm.
I called a place that I thought might be a solution. And they said my 16-year-old son had to check himself in. And at that point, I was really lost. And it's not like you're telling people what's going on behind your closed doors.
Mhm.
It's a very vulnerable place to be. Kind of are unsure. And again, I had no idea there was mental health issues. I just saw pot, I saw acting out. I didn't
Sure.
really even know what I was dealing with. I didn't have the concept, the
Mhm.
vernacular. This was
Mhm.
completely like out of left field to me, and I really didn't know where to go.
I mean, there's so much there, and what a great why for, starting other parents like me. I mean, the name, right, is very much exactly what you went through. We are doing a lot of the same work or serving the
Mm,
same parents,
love
being
that.
lighthouses amidst this crazy
Mm,
sea of, oh my God, mental health addiction and the loneliness. The piece that I really like, there's two things I want to dive into if you're cool with that, is one of the co-parenting piece, but also that idea of
yeah.
you were going through everything your son was going through. You were experiencing
Mm,
shame, you were experiencing isolation, you were experiencing anxiety, you were, like you said, not going up to your friends at the supermarket and be like, guess what's going on in my life?
Right. By the
Not,
way.
not to say parents can't. And I love actually when families don't live a life of, toxic shame and kind of go turtle, as I call it, go into the shell. And that's what organizations like Other Parents Like Me, or of course, the Four Peaks Parents program, where I get to work intimately, with parents. We're again doing similar work, approaching it from different angles. I love the group concept that you all are
Yeah.
creating so the families cannot feel alone. Or like people don't know that you are going through a trauma, and then you're all keyed up, you're stressed out, and then you're trying to, like you said, discern, do I have this co-parent or not? Do I have, this resource or not? Do I trust this website, right? Because every website looks
Right.
beautiful on the outside.
Totally.
Who is the Sherpa, right, to lead
Mm.
to? And it's not, your story is not unique, unfortunately, around how difficult it is for parents to find that commonality or to create that co-written norm. When you look back on it, what do you think would have been helpful for you and your husband to have? What would have been, because now you've built this amazing organization, and I'd like to think the Four Peaks Parents program would have been a great resource for both of you to have myself as a Sherpa who could be a objective third party. What do you think going back would have really been helpful for you that you didn't have?
Yeah. Well, first, you just gave me like a moment of clarity. I feel like I'm in a therapy session because I really never put two and two together that I was having the same experience as my son.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really profound thought for me because I think I was just, and I know other parents are the same way. We just put our head down and you're just focused on like fixing that
Mm-hmm.
person or operating you're so like concentrating on that
Yes.
individual, the loudest
Yeah.
in the house, that you're actually
Yes.
not thinking about yourself. So I really never thought about the fact that I was having a similar experience to my son. So thank you for that.
You're
Maybe
welcome.
I should
Yeah.
go to you.
No. We're trying to set up a talk actually, which I'm super excited about. We'll not waste our interview
Well,
here talking about that, but I'm so excited to give back, and I love doing parenting talks. And every time I go to a parenting talk, even though I've been in this space for 24 years, when I hear another professional or parent or, a coach or whoever, I'm listening to a book right now about ADHD, and it's so funny because I thought, I don't think I know everything about ADHD, but I'm always like, okay, why am I listening to this book? And then I'm like, oh my God, right? There's like 85 things I didn't think about. So that's just what we do. And that's why it's so important. And I think of Other Parents Like Me is, I haven't been in one of your groups, and so I don't want to advertise, if you will, what it's exactly like, but I have facilitated a bazillion groups throughout my career. And I used to run a group called the Strength in Numbers, which is similar, I imagine, that was all other families that had a loved one in active addiction. And I would always say, like, each one teach one. We're not here to necessarily say this is the definitive prescriptive how you cope or how you navigate or how you create recovery, but it's so nice to just hear someone else who's not, again, in the trauma, right? Because
yeah,
when we're that close to the elephant,
exactly.
we just see gray, and you don't realize that you're in a cortisol bath. You have PTSD acute when your loved one is in active addiction or active mental health or active high risk behavior. You have PTSD acute.
Yeah.
After that, you might have PTSD chronic or not.
Yeah.
But yes, that idea of like taking your own internal temperature and being like, what are my needs, or what do I need, or what do I organically think, is unfortunately a unique experience and novel, because if you're not careful when you're in that stressed, acute stress disorder type place, you're just kind of taking in whatever someone's offering, or you're doing your best thinking in the moment, which is why a lot of families I work with have guilt around decisions they've made. I have a family I just started working with who their kiddo went to wilderness, and
Yeah.
I don't want to go off on a whole thing. I'm a big fan. I'm a fan of interventions and programs and vetting, and I'm not for or against wilderness. It's every program needs to be vetted. However, like you said, you were in crisis and you did your best thinking in the moment. So what do you think would have been helpful if you could go back now with all the knowledge you have, all the objectivity and the
Yeah.
non-cortisol bath? What do you think would have been helpful to navigate?
Well, I think what I've learned is fear shuts down listening. And I think when you're operating from unprocessed fear and trauma, you're not hearing each other. right? So I realized we both loved him. We
Mm.
love him, not even past
Mhm.
tense,
Mhm.
but
Of
we were
course.
protecting ourselves. Like,
Sure.
without support, it's, in my opinion, almost impossible to meet in the middle.
Mm.
And that's when I think misunderstandings grow and resentment grows, and that just kind of quietly builds. So I think, number one, we really needed support as like individually to process
Mhm.
our fear and also together so that we could start to understand that we were actually on common ground.
Mhm.
Like we did
Mhm.
not understand. I was so furious with him for his
Mm.
denial, and God knows
Mm.
how he thought about me, and it was
Mhm.
all valid,
Mhm.
that we couldn't even like hear one another and
Mhm.
understand that at the core was that we are freaking out. We are so scared and we love our son. So I would say that is number one. And number two is exactly why we started Other Parents Like Me, because when you start to hear other people tell your same story,
Mhm.
I can't even believe how much you can actually breathe better. Like
Mhm.
you say, I'm not unique. I thought I was. Like, I
Mhm.
actually had no idea.
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
funny to hear you say that because I share that a lot. And I
Mhm.
remember the first online group I went to with all strangers. And my co-founder had started this. We had met at a therapeutic boarding school both our sons were going to, and it started with 15 families that she knew to support one another, and then it quickly grew to over 350, and she was really trying to get me to come on. And what I didn't understand was that I was a part of this story, and I really thought it was my son's issue. I was like, "Why do I have
Mhm.
to go?"
Mhm.
And it's his problem. Like,
Mhm.
why I'm already in therapy for myself. Why do I
Mhm.
need to do this? Like, I was such a brat. I was such the stereotypical
Mhm.
New Yorker. I like to
Mhm.
joke. And God bless Casey because she was so tenacious and was like, "I told everybody you were joining this week." I was like, "Oh my God, I never said yes. I'm
Mhm.
not going. This is his
Mhm.
issue. I'm
Mhm.
busy." And then the first meeting I went to was my mic drop moment. Somebody shared that their son had just punched a hole in the wall. Their
What size is
experience.
the hole in your house?
I had no I
Right next to the
literally
same
thought,
right next to the same, yeah, exactly.
oh my, and
Yeah.
obviously this was out of character for my
Sure,
son,
sure.
and from my understanding, it's just pot. Like I
Right,
didn't have knowledge of how this changes your brain
right,
chemistry, like any of that.
right.
And the other part that was stunning to me, stunning, was not only to hear somebody tell my story, was all the little faces on the screen were doing a yes. They had all had that experience as well. So it wasn't just one, it wasn't two. It was like 35 faces shaking their head yes. And really, that took my breath away. That's when I realized, oh, this is like a big deal. Like,
Mhm,
this is happening everywhere. And these people, I don't even know them. And I already feel safe. I already
mhm,
feel like I can share. I feel like they understand what I'm going through. And I
mhm,
really did not know, even though this wasn't therapy, how
mhm.
therapeutic it
Of
felt
course,
just to
of
be able
course.
to speak your truth, right? With
Yeah,
no judgment
yeah.
whatsoever. And in fact, those people have those same stories.
Well, to go back to the eye-opening thing you said that I said apparently that was so great.
Yeah.
But
I
is that
love it.
you it's called the parallel process of addiction. As your loved one's increasing tolerance for the drug, you're increasing tolerance for the behavior. As
Mm,
they're experiencing shame and isolation, you're getting shame and isolated the family. As they're
mhm,
going through physiological changes, you're going through physiological changes. As they're experiencing psychological stress, you're
mm.
experiencing psychological stress. As they're basically spiritually, financially broken, emotionally
Yeah.
or physiologically, so are you, right? And so, what I always say my job is when I work with the family is not that I don't care about this side, which is the loved one. I definitely care deeply, but I'm going to do everything I can to raise the culture and to raise
Mhm.
ostensibly the health and wellness of the parents, which by proxy will also
Yes.
help, right, this loved one have
Yes.
some really clear choices towards stepping on that same pathway or remaining. But the first thing is to cut that, that umbilical cord, if you will, of going
Mhm.
down together. And when you
Yeah.
meet someone else who is on the other side, it does so much for you because they are not necessarily perfect. They haven't necessarily survived. Their loved one could be in active addiction. They could not even have spoken to their loved one for 14 days, or their loved one could have threatened to kill themselves last
Yeah.
night at 4 in the morning. but they're here and they're alive, and that gives you hope. And what you're selling, metaphorically, is hope and is strategy and is obviously empowerment and is action and is their circle of control. And so when you have a positive contagion effect of these families that, again, and you can hear, like, even just listening, of course, I wasn't going through it, and I go through my own shit, and I'm kind of thinking about my wife and I and how easily we get split. And it is always because we both love our son and we're both
Right.
scared. And you and your husband, I hear so easily the polarization because you went into like action mode. Can I make a Jewish mom joke? So it's like my favorite joke in the world. What does a Jewish mother do when she's cold? Do you know this one?
No, I don't.
She puts a sweater on her son. So there you were, right, trying to play fixer, and you were like, it reminds me of, I used to be the director of an LGBT program in Yonkers and White Plains, and I'm a white straight male and was at the time as well, and it was one of the best 5 years of my life. And there were families that would find, our flyer, because we were a supportive protective factor for these teens after school, and there'd be parents threatening to kill me, and then there'd be other parents threatening to be like, how can I get pizza on a Friday night? When is the gay, the march, gay pride, or how can I support gay prom? Because we had a prom, and some of those parents were in the same house. And so that idea of one parent's, and in the Grand Canyon is where we're really not effective. And the beauty of, I think, your organization is I'm sure going to create space for someone like your husband, right? He could have shown up. And the same thing is true in my program. Like I love when the father or mother fights with me, if you will. Number one, I already have their money. And number two is a 3-month program, and it's a sprint to their wellness. And I always say, you're still welcome. And I'm willing to work with people at any different level of change or readiness. And having that resistance is not inherently bad. It's obviously not the most effectual use of time and energy. But that's where people sometimes have to go, right?
Yeah.
And you think of, where you had to go was, oh, my son's the identified patient. And then Casey, thank God, pulled you in and said, no, you have a role here. Not to say that you caused it all. No, I don't need to say this to you because
of course.
You're an expert in this. It's a family disease. So talk about that shift from identified patient perspective, it's my son, to, oh no, I need to do some work to set myself up for success so that if he does get out of that, right, toward the goal, I'm ready. What does that look like? And how does OPLM, right, play a role in that for families?
Yeah, I think that being in the groups I got so much learning and listening and getting the nuggets from other parents. Some had coaches. So somebody might share something. And I remember this mom named Mitzi, or grandmother actually, would say, well, my coach had made this suggestion. And so I would get these little nuggets that started to like teach me, like understand more of the process and more about how to move forward. I think it was like so much of a combination of, understanding what the disease was, understanding what was going on with my son, getting educated. He began in wilderness, and that was really the beginning of our education and understanding that it's a family disease. It was like literally new words, lizard brain. Like I was like, where have I been? Like, how do I? It was sort of jaw dropping. And also that therapist guiding us on how to communicate with our son, because at that point we were only allowed letter writing.
I was just about to ask you, that was our model too, which slows I always say STFD, which is slow the fudge or fuck, however you want to say it, but STFD. And when you have to actually respond in a letter, it slows the fudge down and really allows you to be thoughtful and really intentional with how you're communicating. You're not in that fight or flight, right? Reactionary stance. That's great.
And I think that 3 months that he was in wilderness was a really good time. As you say, like the letter writing, the education. I was in my own therapy, and coincidentally, or maybe it was meant to be, my therapist had addiction problems. So I happened to have the perfect therapist. Like she started out as a marriage counselor. And so she was really able to sort of help me understand, my part, how to navigate some of this process. So I had so much support between the programs my son was in and those therapists, listening to my son, working on myself, listening to other parents. Like I feel like I had it in all different, like I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
wrapped
Yeah.
around, and just little by little by little, I started to learn, that like my contribution, and the hardest lesson, and I'm still working on it, is it's his life. And like,
Mm-hmm.
and what my biggest learning was, and this is came from my therapist, is helping needs to feel good.
Mm.
And what I discovered was when I
I
would
like that.
jump in and try to get involved and he didn't want me to, it didn't feel good. He'd be like, get out of my space, leave me alone. But I was on a mission, like I was going to
Mm-hmm.
help him, but
Mm-hmm.
that didn't feel good. And
Mm-hmm.
so that has, for me, has been my biggest learning, because again, I
Mm-hmm.
run my own business. So I'm used to jumping in. Like
Mm-hmm.
those
Mm-hmm.
skills that have
Mm-hmm.
helped me be successful did not work as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
It might work for my company, but not as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I learned to say, hey, I'm here if you need me. I love you, but I understand you got this. If you want my thoughts or help, I'm here. Man, was that hard. I mean, like I've been
It's
working
super
on that.
hard. I'm going through that big time with my two teenage boys, right? And I always say it's like flying at the right altitude at the right time,
Mm,
and I think what a lot of families do is they'll start, a process like where you started, and they remain in that role. So I want to give you a real
mhm.
positive shout out, as you
Thank
began
you.
as the top down manager, project manager, and think about all the hats you were wearing in the beginning, right? You were
Yeah.
the warden, you were the ed consultant, you were the therapist, you were the case manager, you were the,
Yeah.
the crisis worker, the psychiatrist, all these things, that the executive functioning coach. And then you learned in that process, which again, big up to you, because not everyone's able to do this, is you availed yourself of, like you said, learning via osmosis from hearing other parents and absorbing that, and not, hitting a saturation point, which a lot of families
Mm,
do, where it's easy to just go, no, 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 not right. And I'm just going to continue to plow through in my either detached dad stance or detached mom or micromanaging mom or dad,
mm,
or I'm going to fly at 30,000 feet, or I'm going to be diving in the weeds. You really got to this beautiful place where you do need to let go. That doesn't mean you're detached. You're obviously, I'm sure, incredibly connected and present and
mm,
available, but that you needed to let him own, right, his path moving forward. And one thing that is so hard to hear, that I have said to many parents, which is so hard to hear, and will be really hard for me if I have to hear this one day from a coach or a therapist, is recovery is not necessarily for everybody. We want it to be, and
yeah.
we can cheerlead for it, and we can set up a process for it. But at the end of the day, right, your loved one has to, right, make those choices and take responsibility for their path. And let's hope they're on that pathway toward recovery, right? That's why it's recovery, not recovered. And
Mhm.
we could talk about relapse versus prolapse, and is that a part of, someone's journey? But that's such a beautiful pivot. I mean, talk about, that's like a 7 PhDs right there.
Thank you. That's so kind.
Yeah, no, but that's like a big up to you. And to go from, like, again, this over identified Jewish mom,
Mm.
right, who's gonna fix
Yeah. Stereotypical.
this, well, to this mother. Well, but I wouldn't say all those skills are not necessary. I go back to this family I started working with, who has a lot of, guilt around in their own trauma. They pulled a few triggers towards some programs that weren't great, and they didn't have, a person like me, because not only do families get me for those 90 days, they're getting my entire network of top tier professionals that I can vet and
Mm,
assure
it's
are going
great.
to get the highest level of care. But you have to understand, for that person, and even you, and even your husband, like you said, you go back to ex-husband, you go back to love and fear are so, you know,
Yes. Yeah.
meshed there. And we get into these archetypical ways of being. I'm going to be this. I'm going to dad
Mhm,
like this. I'm going to mom like
mhm.
this. I'm going to, and that nuance, to have that kind of situational awareness, to kind of be more a ballet dancer and respond. That's so hard, especially with trauma. It's so
Well,
hard.
what I also learned was how it's a journey. There's, in my
Hmm.
opinion, there's no end. And
Yeah.
I personally do not like the word perfect, because I just
Yeah.
don't believe in it. And what I was like surprised about is when my son was able to come home is how much we kind of went back into our old roles.
Mhm,
And also, and we had done now, it was almost a year and a half of
mhm,
both of us being in heavy therapy and
mhm,
getting so much
mhm,
support. And I always say we were like feral cats circling each
mhm,
other. I remember my son came to visit and he's like,
mhm,
is mom gonna like get in my
mhm,
shit? What's
mhm,
she like? And I'm like, oh
mhm,
my God, is he gonna smoke pot and
mhm,
punch a wall? Like
mhm.
we literally, because we hadn't
Totally.
seen each other
Sure.
either. And we had many fights and went back to, we triggered each other, went back to our old ways. And then I really tried to lean into how can I show up differently? And how can we find a good place that we can see that each other is healthier? And
Mhm,
what I figured out for us was cooking. And I realized, like, for us to have an activity, be able to focus on that, we both
mhm,
have a love of cooking. We're really into food. It was like the perfect setting. And like little by little, making dinner together occasionally, being able to have conversations, I think we began to be able to see each other in our present moment and how
mhm.
far we had come. But, it's a daily, it's a
Bro, but
daily.
what you're describing is again not unique, not it's so common for families. It's that's called the psychobabble. In psychobabble, it's called the
Mm,
recapitulation of dyads and triads, right? Dyads two, triads three. It's like
mm,
if you had this velociraptor living in your household and you were keyed up all the time waiting for the next shoe to drop, and now they're back, even though yes, they just did 90 days in wilderness, which as the clinical director of Adirondack Leaderships, I know how badass and awesome that is. Big up to your
yeah,
son. I'm a biggest fan of outdoor behavioral health because just all of the character building and all of the self-esteem, building, and that he can lean
amazing.
on those skills for the rest of his
Mhm.
life, knowing that he knows how to bow drill and knowing that,
Mhm.
he can carry a 40-pound pack and he can, do all these things and also be a part of a group and be led and be a leader. And oh my God, the list goes on and
Yes.
on.
Right.
But that's understandable that you would, fall back, both of you, into this cagey place. And what I hear, which is so hard, and I think of myself and my own son right now who's separating, individuating, and I'm the biggest fan. I actually hate codependency and enmeshment. That's like, I feel like that's my enemy that I'm fighting every day. It's like,
Yeah.
and yet here I am, like at times, like my son is pushing back in a good way, and I'm like unconsciously sometimes thwarting that, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like, well, what is this? It's a threat. And so how you typified that is so important. Like he was, what I hear is like he was feeling infantilized at times by you, but then you were also
Yes.
like, bro, 90 days is like a blip in the currency-o-meter,
Mm,
So it's so hard. So like that's amazing that you found something like cooking where it's this place we can
mm,
meet, this
mhm.
common ground that doesn't have all the old stupid dynamics. Like that's such a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. That's a beautiful
Yeah,
thing.
and even now, like he recently came forward and said he didn't want to go to college and finish college. And we argued around that. I
Mhm,
couldn't
mhm,
understand it. My whole life has been, you're going to college.
mhm,
How
mhm,
lucky are you that we can pay for you? And like,
mhm,
I had to really work on learning.
mhm,
He said, this is what you want. This isn't what I want.
mhm,
And I could not hear that. I
mm,
couldn't
mm,
understand it. And that took a lot of work on my end.
mhm,
So, again, I'm like constantly trying to work on it's his life. And, today we have really a beautiful relationship and, we see each other as often as we can. And he tells me all the time, I'm so happy. You
mhm,
know what? I don't know if he's drinking or smoking
mhm,
pot. Like, I
mhm,
don't know, but he is financially
mhm,
responsible. And
mhm,
for your child to say, I'm happy, like,
mhm.
honestly, I'm out. It's like, I
Right,
have no
yeah.
business to say, you got to go to college and like, let
Right,
me take away your
right,
joy.
right.
And also, the really, I think, biggest surprise from this entire experience is that he actually says he's grateful for it. I expected a lot of anger. I feel like I'd
Mhm,
be pissed if my parents set me off and I
mhm,
didn't get to like
mhm,
finish at
mhm,
my high school.
mhm,
Like his level, his EQ from this
mm,
experience,
mhm, mhm,
his bonding, like
mhm,
he got an apartment with two other guys that he had met in recovery,
mhm,
Arizona, and
mhm,
is now living in New York. I had no
mhm,
idea he was still
mhm.
friends with these
It's
individuals.
awesome.
So, there's so much beauty in the experience and,
Yes.
it's,
Well,
it's ending in some ways.
it is, but I don't want listeners to hear, "Oh, okay, cool. The
Mhm.
major lesson here from Liz is just let go and let God," which is
No,
a
God, no.
huge lesson.
Yeah,
But that's something that you've had to graduate into
yeah.
because you first had to scurry again. And I would have been exactly like you. My kids know they're effed because like
Mm,
my
yeah.
good friends are all ed consultants, interventionists, like
Oh, they're screwed.
clinical
They're screwed.
directors, like,
Done.
we all know, like, like literally, I was just like visiting a program, and like every time I'm going to North Carolina to speak and tour another program, and it's like they always know like one pill, and like there's your if there is a college
Yeah.
fund, you know what I mean? If they're going to go to college, it's gone. But you've arrived at this really nice place where it's not an abdication of your job as mom.
Mm,
It's just a much more intentional, and also right fit proportional role that doesn't rob him of his own individuation or empowerment and
yes.
actually adds to, right, and you'll always be there for him. And I like that you don't have the clipboard and you're not like, did you go to AA tonight and playing the recovery police, right? I like that.
They don't.
That's his thing, and in terms of whatever his version of his own sobriety recovery perspective on that is. And the piece earlier about having to make those hard decisions and being understandably worried that he could have hated or resented you. That's the most common thing I've ever heard is like, what if
Yeah.
my kid literally, hates me for life? And again, it's not about just letting go, which is what you're doing now. It's being big enough in those moments to have done the best you could and pull those triggers really pretty much by yourself, which was had to be so difficult. So you deserve a lot of credit. Again, he deserves tons as well. And I
Yeah.
always say to families, nothing changes if nothing changes, and everything changes, right? Once we start changing one thing. But we can't contrive, as you know, right? Recovery. But I always say we certainly, right, can create a culture that's going to create the
Mm,
best conditions to agitate a change process. And
yes.
that's what you did, and learned a lot and made a
Mhm.
bunch of mistakes, which I love. And I'd love for you to shout out, which you already have, of course, but tell parents about what the opportunity is through OPLM and how folks can get involved and learn more if they want to join a group.
Yeah, thank you. So, other parents like me, our website is oplm.com. What we've done is we offer 18 online support groups weekly. So, there are different groups all throughout the day. It doesn't matter if you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or another country. We've since discovered we have parents from all 50 states and from 11 different countries joining our groups. The beauty of these groups is that they are peer led. So it's really parents that have these same lived experiences. We have 30 peer parents that work for us and they are trained. So they're not just jumping in and trained in terms of, again, we are not therapists. This is your
Mhm.
world,
Mhm.
right? We're there to help guide a conversation, make people feel safe, heard. And then there's also bi-monthly education in terms of understanding, what is ASD? What do I do if somebody has a child that has suicide ideation? Like how to handle certain situations or understand the terminology to, again, direct these conversations. Every meeting starts with a meditation
Mhm.
to kind of ground us. And then we have this very robust topic library for our peer parents to pull from to guide these conversations. We also offer every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have guest speakers come on, like yourself,
Okay.
that, yes, I can't wait to
Well,
have you on.
we'll make it happen, but it's crazy soccer season for the boys, and of course that's like the one night we're gonna figure it out. But yeah, keep
Yeah,
going.
and we're like booked. I mean, it's
Yeah.
amazing. And this is like, these are experts, right? These are an opportunity for our parents to raise their hand, ask questions. This isn't a podcast. This is
Hmm.
like a lot of learning. So we could
Hmm.
call them seminars. We call them or webinars. We call them Thursday talks. And then those are recorded. So we have almost 300 right now that are on our database. And then we just have this huge resource hub because that's what I couldn't find, right? Like I wanted to read about
Mm-hmm.
things. That's the way
Mm-hmm.
my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, God forbid, your child is cutting. You type
Mm-hmm.
that in, you can get podcasts,
Awesome.
articles, books, you can
Love it.
get experts. And yeah, so there is a fee. It's $49 a month. We are really trying to get like schools and other educational programs and employers to pay for this. We also have a financial aid side. We have over 250 parents that have
Yes.
access for free.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And, there's so much there. That I don't even need to say anything other than that if you are a parent,
Just use it.
use it. And obviously, of course, if anyone, is concerned about their kiddo and is interested in learning more about what the heck the Four Peaks Parents Program is and how I help families build a very clear pathway forward that nets wellness for them and their loved one, please go to fourpeaksparents.com. Each peak is a specific goal. The first peak is the family audit. The second peak is emotional mastery. Third peak is upgrading your toolkit. And fourth peak is rewriting your family story, right? So we can kind of create a clear pathway forward. Also, please go to fourpeaksparents.com, sign up for this newsletter that you get all these free tips, tools, and strats right to your inbox. Please keep listening to this podcast. Thank you so much, Liz. Amazing, amazing, amazing. If you had one quick little message to all the parents out there, what would that be?
I would say you're not alone, and really we're all going through something. And, really you need community. And if wherever you go, really you just need to be able to take a breath. So,
I like that. I think we all need a
yeah.
collective breath and slow the fudge down. Yeah. And
Yeah.
also trust our guts. And I
Yeah.
cannot thank you enough. Thank you for sharing your personal story. Thank you for all the golden nuggets. And really quick, if you didn't already say it, what is the website for other?
Open.com.
Awesome.
And it's 2 weeks for free. So if you're unsure, just know
Nice.
you can join and it costs nothing.
Well, please, anyone listening, go check it out. Check out fourpeaksparents.com and also please share and like this podcast. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Keep on
Thanks
keeping
so
on,
much.
everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye.